Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Minkah Fitzpatrick from Alabama.
Not one, but two national awards at the College Football Awards Show last Thursday night in Atlanta. Minkah Fitzpatrick took home the Jim Thorpe Award for the best defensive back, and then topped that with the Bednarik Award that goes to the best overall defensive player in college football. He's only the third player to win both awards. He's Bama's second straight Bednarik winner, as Jonathan Allen won that one last year. And good evening, everybody. Welcome in to Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. Tonight from Buffalo Rock, we've got Diet Pepsi. Love that sound, but let me tell you what, it's even better when it's going down. Ice cold Diet Pepsi and other Pepsi products available at your local grocery store and convenience stores from Buffalo Rock. And no, we did not plan the shirts again. I guess we're going to have to touch base so we don't wear the same shirts. But I tell you one thing. Minkah Fitzpatrick is something special. He's a consensus All-American, the first Jim Thorpe winner under Coach Saban. Think about that. All the great defensive backs and Coach Saban being a defensive back guru, that's his first Thorpe winner at Alabama. The only other Jim Thorpe Award winner was Antonio Lankum from the Crimson Tide. And he could very well be playing next year in the NFL. In fact, odds are probably that he will come out for the draft. Rodney, let's just talk about Fitzpatrick. How does he compare to some of the other defensive greats in Bama football history? I think he's got to rank up there. I thought he even should have gotten Heisman consideration. I think he's got to rank up there as one of the best defensive players in Alabama history, with the Leroy Jordans and the Derek Thomases and the Cornelius Bennetts and the Jonathan Allens. How do you feel about him?
I think he's a great player. I mean, obviously, I don't know really how to compare him to anyone else, but I just know this. Since the first day that guy stepped on campus, he's made an impact in a lot of different ways. You very rarely see a guy come out of high school that's like instantly ready to play, but Minkah Fitzpatrick was one of those guys. He was not an early enrollee. He got here in the summer before his freshman year, and you remember that game against Texas A&M when he had, what, a couple of pick sixes, Gary, his freshman year. He had the block punt against Georgia that he scooped up and ran in for a touchdown as a true freshman. Not only is he a difference maker on the field, but I think with his personality, the way he kind of handles himself, carries himself off the field, he's just been a fantastic leader, you know, for this program.
Well, he'll need to be fantastic against Clemson, because that's going to be a big challenge for this Alabama defense, as it has been the last 2 years. Minkah played in both of those national championship games against the Tigers. Now he'll play against Clemson in the National College Football Semifinals at the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. Well, before the College Football Awards show last week, Nick Saban joined the three other semifinal coaches in a press conference. They were all asked about the status of their teams, and in this week's Coach Talk, presented by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports, Nick Saban said he's proud of Alabama's journey to get to this point.
I really like the way the players sort of persevered and overcame the adversity and kept playing, and it created a lot of opportunity for a lot of other young players to go out there and play. So I think the togetherness that our team showed throughout the year to have the consistency and performance that we wanted to try to get, and the adversity that they overcame, showed the true competitive character of what could lead into a team that could have a chance to compete for a championship.
4 years of the college football playoff, only one team has been in it all 4 years. That is Alabama. But this is something that Alabama's had to deal with, and probably kind of getting old for the fans, the players, and for Coach Saban. I think this was a little bit of a surprise based on what led up to this point. But last week, Tennessee finally hired a head coach, and it was none other than Crimson Tide defensive coordinator Jeremy Pruitt, his first head coaching job at any level. Pruitt was officially introduced in Knoxville on Thursday and said he will coach the Bama defense through the playoffs. Now, this is the third straight season Alabama will have a coordinator hired as a head coach before the playoffs even begin. Kirby Smart, Lane Kiffin, the other two. Do you think Pruitt's hiring at Tennessee will have any effect on his status preparing this Alabama defense for the college football semifinal against Clemson?
Well, I think everyone around here should be used to it. I mean, the players, the coaches, as you mentioned, there's been 3, and we go back to 2011 before the national championship game against LSU. We had the offensive coordinator, Jim McElwain, who was headed to Colorado State. Thought he did a great job. You mentioned that Kirby Smart had done this a couple of years ago and Alabama went on to win the national championship. It wasn't so successful last year. But listen, I think Jeremy Pruitt, I've always been extremely high on him as a coach and all the things that go with that, recruiting, talent evaluating. And I think one thing for sure, I think he wants to do this. He wanted to coach the team, coach the defense through these playoffs. So I think this is something that he wanted to do, and I think, certainly these players will get his best.
Yeah, no doubt about it, and his loyalty is to his players. He's built a relationship with these guys at Alabama. As you said, Alabama's used to it, and I'll be honest with you, I think it'd be nice if they could get through one playoff without having a coach hired away as a head coach. Coach Saban continues to say it's a compliment to your program. He's excited for assistance, and I believe that, but I do think, even though you try to handle it the best you can, I do think it's a distraction. Now, it's a distraction they'll have to work through, and they'll work hard, and Pruitt will work hard to manage his time like Smart did, like Jim McElwain did, but that doesn't mean it isn't a distraction because, quite frankly, Rodney, I think it is.
Well, it is, but there's really nothing you can do about it. I mean, when you have this kind of success over an extended period of time and you have so many people that are involved in this success that they've been a key part of it, there you see Kirby Smart. He was here, 9 years? Jeremy Pruitt's been in the program a long time. Of course, he went away, was successful at Florida State where they won a national championship, did a really nice job a couple of years at Georgia, turning that defense around and recruiting a lot of the players that Kirby Smart used this year to win the SEC. So he's got a great reputation. You knew it was just a matter of time. If it wouldn't be this year, Gary, is probably going to be next year. So you knew that was right around the corner. Generally, Nick Saban has a plan. He knows how to handle these things.
With the success Clemson's had, how in the heck does Dabo Swinney keep bringing the same staff back year after year?
Well, Brent Venables, that's almost unbelievable that he hasn't had a great opportunity.
It's mind-boggling to me that he keeps bringing his coaches back, but not at Alabama. Well, we are getting ready for more Tighter Insider TV. Still to come, the Alabama men's basketball team battles against a top 25 program on the road. Plus, we're 8 days from the early signing period for college football. We'll discuss Alabama's head start on the 2018 recruiting class. Plus, we'll get to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As I always say, go ahead and call in now so you can get through. 205-348-WVUA. That's 205-348-9882. That's the phone number. You can email us, TITV@WVUA23.com. Brandon will be checking those emails. Or you can tweet at us. Make sure you use that hashtag TITV so we will see it. We want to hear from you later on in the program. This is the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. The one and the only Tighter Insider TV will return after this timeout. Alabama men's basketball went toe-to-toe with an athletically gifted Arizona team this past Saturday night in Tucson before falling 88-82, Bama's third loss of the season. Dante Hall had a second straight double-double, and Colin Sexton had 30 points as the Tide led the game at halftime and took it down to the wire, but the Wildcats shot nearly 60% from the field in the second half and pulled out the 6-point win. Welcome back to Tighter Insider Television. I'm Gary Harris alongside Rodney Orr. That loss, as I said, came at the McKell Center in Tucson after Bama won 68-64 over Rhode Island at Coleman Coliseum last Wednesday. Now, Bama's 7-3 now, with Texas and 9th-ranked Texas A&M still ahead this month on the schedule. A&M, the SEC opener. Rodney, let's talk about this team. No, they didn't win at Arizona. I understand that. And bottom line is you don't want to heap too much praise on a team when they don't win. But Arizona is physically as talented as any team in this country, period. They've got Final Four potential. To be able to go out there on a Saturday night in a jam-packed gym on national television in that stage and play that level of basketball, yes, they lost the game, but it showed that this Alabama team can line up athletically, athlete for athlete, and play against the best in the country, in my opinion.
Well, that says a lot right there. I mean, when you look at such a young team, Gary, to be able to go on the road and play like that, I think that bodes really well when you're talking about as we start to move into SEC play, which is going to be extremely important. Going to have some really difficult road games coming ahead. But, again, I was extremely impressed watching the game. And you mentioned it. They were extremely competitive and had an opportunity to really win the game.
Now, you see that stat. They have lost 2 of the last 3. The Arizona loss, you can understand that. The Central Florida loss at home a week ago Sunday, now to me is inexcusable. They're better than Central Florida. They didn't play well at all in that game. But again, in terms of the talent level, Colin Sexton, John Petty, you look at Dante Hall. I think a Roy Rogers comparison is a good one. Roy Rogers came here athletic but slender, put on some weight, became a great player by the end of his career, #1 draft choice, first-round draft pick. Dante Hall showing that same type of improvement. They've got some size inside. But remember this, they will get Braxton Key back for their next game against Mercer. He is one of the most talented players on the team. Now, he's got to be integrated into the lineup. Coach Avery Johnson's going to have to get this rotation settled on before they open conference play against Texas A&M. But this team has a chance, in my opinion, to not only get into the NCAA tournament, to be a top 4 seed, meaning that you would be one of the 16 best teams in the country, according to the seeding. I think they can be a top 12, 15, 16 team in the country. We'll see. But I think the potential is there. Now, you got to go out and you got to play. But that man right there, #2, he is as good as advertised, and I do think will be a one-and-done player at Alabama. All right, Rodney, the early signing period begins December 20th. That's next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow. But last week, the Crimson Tide really made a move. They'd been out on the road. They picked up 3 new commitments, defensive backs Nadab Joseph and Savion Smith, and tied in Michael Parker. This is a good hit for Alabama getting ready for this December 20th signing day, particularly the 2 cornerbacks. That's an area of need.
Yeah, Nadab Joseph, an outstanding high school player down in Miami, and he's a versatile player. Came here, went through the Alabama camp, and proved that he had the versatility to possibly play corner and safety. So that's really big. He was a former LSU commit, by the way. And Savion Smith was a former LSU 5-star recruit who played there for a year, was recruited there by Les Miles when they had the coaching change with Orgeron, decided to leave. Really an outstanding player this year at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. God, bringing in those 2 guys at positions of need in the secondary. I think you need another 1 or 2 to go along with them back there. If they can close out this defensive back class like it looks like, Gary, they're going to do a really outstanding job and have an opportunity to fill some of those needs.
And Michael Parker is one of these, in this day and age, it's rare you say this, but a little bit under the radar recruit from Westminster Christian there in Huntsville, but he's got outstanding measurables. He's 6'6", he's about 240 pounds. He's a terrific athlete. I mean, really long-armed and fits the criteria for what you're looking at in a tight end. He's going to get bigger. He'll probably play at about 260 pounds. I like taking in-state guys, and I think down the road, because they've got some great tight ends already there, maybe after a redshirt year, he's got a chance down the road to be a really good player.
He really does. I mean, you look at him, you mentioned his size, but, you know, not only that, he'll surprise you with his speed. He's clocked at some camps at 4'6".
Yeah, good athlete.
Yeah, so the guy is really an outstanding athlete, and I think he had 2 brothers of walk-on players here, so, you know, he understands the tradition, no question.
Yeah, outstanding young man. All right, when we come back, phone calls, emails, and tweets. Call now so you can get through. 205-348-9882. There's the email address, or if you tweet at us using the hashtag TITV, Brandon will get to it. He'll see it, and we'll try to get it on the air for you. We're going to come back with your comments and questions next here on Tider Insider Television. Stay with us. And welcome back to Tider Insider Television. Thanks for joining us, Rodney Orr, Gary Harris. Let's get right to the phone lines. Our phone line is sponsored by Daniel Moore's New Life Art. I like to call it the New Life Art Hotline. Remember, when you want Alabama sports paintings that capture the great moments in Crimson Tide football history, Daniel Moore's New Life Art is where you need to turn. All right, let's go to Sammy, our pal up there, the Tomato Man in Walker County. What up, Sammy?
Happy holidays, Gary and Rodney.
Yes, sir.
Best wishes to all and family. And my comment was Marlon Humphrey was first-round draft choice, and I'm sure Minkle will be. But the it factor, of course, was Deshaun Watson. We couldn't stop that little Hunter Renfro. Do you think we'll have better luck this year with him? He's just awesome.
Yeah, Sammy, that's a great comment and question. They better slow him down, because he has absolutely been a Bama killer the last 2 years. Even in the game they lost 2 years ago, they couldn't slow him down. Last year he won the game for Clemson, pick play or not. You got to know where number 13's at. I mean, he's just one of those guys that gets open and makes plays. And you know, on a team full of playmakers, because Clemson has them, even with all the guys that have gone on to the NFL, if I'm Nick Saban, if I'm Jeremy Pruitt, if I'm that defensive staff, you better believe a point of emphasis for me is going to be slowing down Hunter Renfro.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, you mentioned it, Gary. He's been 2 great games against Alabama. I think the first year Minkah Fitzpatrick was kind of on him, and then last year Tony Brown that was his responsibility for a good part of the game. And listen, you're certainly not blaming those guys. We're giving credit to Hunter Renfrow. I mean, the guy did a fantastic job. Finds ways to get open. He's deceptive. He is deceptive.
Alabama's not the only team he's led.
Absolutely,
he's a good player. But you're right, Sammy. They got to find a way to keep him in check, I think. All right, let's go to Northport and talk with Stephen. Stephen, how are you?
Pretty good. How are y'all today?
Very well, sir.
Hey, listen, first of all, just got back from our local grocers getting some Buffalo Rock Pepsi. Love it.
Yeah, man.
Let me tell you something. I've been watching ESPN, Todd McShay and Mel Kiper Jr.'s top draft picks, defensive back. Had 3 on there, Avant, Harrison, and Fitzpatrick, of course. Now, y'all touched on some of what I was going to ask you about who's going to replace those players. Mm-hmm. But how many are we going to lose this year, would you feel like? And thing is, Braxton Key is going to bring so much experience to our lineup. It's going to be great. Like y'all, talk to y'all later.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, Braxton Key is going to help out basketball, no doubt about it. As far as those secondary guys, well, Avant's the only senior. We know he's gone. Harrison and Mika are both draft-eligible juniors. I expect Mika to go. Wouldn't surprise me if, now again, I don't know this, and it's my guess. Wouldn't surprise me if Harrison went at the same time. He might come back. I mean, we just kind of have to wait and see. But when you're at the level that Alabama is with its players, this is just part of the process. Nick Saban knows it, so I wouldn't be surprised if you're right. They're having to replace a bunch of guys in that secondary next year.
Yeah, you're losing Averett. Obviously, you're also losing the other corner, Levi Wallace, and you talk about the safeties. We know Minka's probably gone. So, we'll see what happens. There's a lot of young players there. You wanted to mention a few. We know that Trevon Diggs started out initially against FSU, and then Levi Wallace kind of replaced him. He's going to probably be in the mix there. They've got a lot of other young guys, Shai Carter, Jared Maiden's been around. We talked about the 2 incoming guys, Nadab Joseph and also Savion Smith, and probably some other freshmen. Jalen Armour-Davis is another really highly recruited player they're bringing in. They've got some young players. Deontay Thompson's a safety that'll be a junior next year. I really like him. He's done well when he's had the opportunity. You've got some other young guys, Gary Xavier McKinney, Daniel Wright, a couple of safeties. So those are guys to really keep an eye on.
And as far as Averett is concerned, that's a guy who, unlike Harrison and Mika, it took him a while. But now he is going to be an NFL draft choice as a senior as well. Okay, more phone calls. Joe, you stay on hold there in Birmingham. We'll get to you first up next, and we'll get to some more calls on Tighter Insider TV. Again, there's the contact information on your screen. We're back after this. Welcome back to Tighter Insider TV. Let's get right back to the New Life Art Hotline. Joe has been patiently waiting there in Birmingham. Joe, thanks for holding. How are you?
No, I'm all right. Nice shirts, guys.
Thank you. Yeah, we didn't plan
it. Yes, I've been a Tighter for ever since I was in high school playing in the 80s. And I'm just wondering why they're not playing 2 backs instead of 1 back. Because I watched all the Clemson games, and we never played 2 backs. With Harris and Bo Shambo in the backfield, that would be deadly.
Yeah, they actually came out with a 2-back set against Auburn early in that game. It had Najee, I think, in there with Bo.
I think Josh Jacobs maybe.
Josh Jacobs, yeah. And their system is more of a 1-back system. Joe, that's the easy answer. That's just what they do with 3 wideouts. Usually 3 wideouts, a tight end, and 1 back. That's kind of the standard. Sometimes 4 wideouts. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw some more 2-back stuff. Even though they went away from it, it was pretty successful early on in that Auburn game, I thought.
Yeah, I think we've seen it throughout the year a few times, Gary. We haven't seen it a whole lot, Joe. You're right. But they have seen it. They have used it occasionally. Would not surprise me, as you mentioned, Gary, if they did maybe show it a little more.
Yeah. All right, let's go to an email from Ray in Northport. And Ray wants to know, is the Alabama football team practicing and getting ready for Clemson, or will that start later? Well, they'll probably, nothing official. My guess is they're going to practice later this week. I'm thinking Friday. And we have not been given any official announcement from the UA Department of Athletics yet. But yes, they have not started practice yet. You're allowed a certain amount of practices. My expectation is they'll be on the practice field later this week, right?
Supposedly on the 15th, Gary, or thereabouts. So, again, yeah, I think it is starting Friday at some point. So probably Friday afternoon.
All right, let's go to Greg in Birmingham. Greg, we're a little short on time. What you got, man?
Hey, real quick, just looking at the depth chart, we don't have a lot of depth. It looks like in the middle, Payne's gone, Frazier's gone. I don't see any defensive tackles being signed so far. I'd be curious to know what we're going to sign or who we're looking at. I know we got the one kid from Louisiana last year that was redshirted, but there's just not a lot of depth there.
Right, Greg, you're right. You're absolutely right. The middle of the defense, interior defensive line is an area of need. Now, listen, I'm not necessarily writing Daron Payne off automatically, okay? I think there is a chance, based on what is best for him and where he projects, that he could come back. Not saying that'll happen. But you're right. They need some interior defensive linemen, and I think they're trying to get some. Well,
to kind of further your point, a few years ago, Jaron Reed was supposedly gone. A'Shawn Robinson did leave, but you remember Jonathan Allen was another player as a junior that everybody said he was gone. I agree with you. I won't be surprised totally if Daron Payne did decide to come back.
All right, CB, we got to go really fast. What you got for us?
What I was going to say, this is between the playoff. I know it helps heal players and got to be rough on something. I don't guess there's no answer to it, is it, on account of TV? What do y'all think?
No, there's no answer. That's the way it's always been, going back to the bowl game system. When you finish the regular season, you get a break. Even if you play in the earliest of bowl games, which start this Saturday, you get a break. It's the same for everybody. I think in Alabama's case, it's good because the grind of a season when everybody's shooting for you takes a toll. I think the break's a positive. Thanks for the phone calls, emails, and tweets. We'll be back to wrap it up right after this. Well, Kenyon Drake's making the most of his starting opportunity for the Dolphins. The former Tide star, 2 straight 100-yard rushing games. He lit up the Patriots last night for 193 total yards as the Dolphins beat New England, snapping the Pats' 8-game winning streak 27-20. And on Sunday, Drake's former teammate Eddie Jackson had his second 2-takeaway game of the season, and it came on his birthday. The Bears' 4th-round draft pick is making a push for the Pro Bowl in his rookie year, and he said Sunday was special.
Man, it feels good, man. It's the best birthday gift you can ask for, man. And I'm just grateful and thankful for my teammates. They was able to, make that happen for me.
He's a good player. All right, that is going to do it for our show. And our beautiful shirts, as always, provided by the Locker Room in downtown Tuscaloosa. No, you don't have to match like we are if you don't want to. They got great clothes, including the original elephant wear. Get by and see them in person or shop online at locker-room.biz. All right, thanks for tuning in. Feel free to join us tonight at one of our hot spots, Heat Pizza Bar. We'll be there in about 15 minutes to have some great pizza. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Have a good night, everyone.